Hola querida comunidad de YouTube, bienvenidos una vez más a nuestro canal, donde las historias más extraordinarias de ingenio humano y perseverancia cobran vida ante vuestros ojos. Soy vuestro narrador de confianza, y hoy tengo preparada para vosotros una historia que os dejará reflexionando sobre el poder de la visión a largo plazo y la importancia de no rendirse ante las críticas de quienes no comprenden nuestros sueños más ambiciosos. ¿Habéis experimentado alguna vez esa frustración de tener una idea grandiosa mientras todos a vuestro alrededor la consideran una pérdida de tiempo colosal? ¿Habéis sentido la soledad de ser los únicos que veis el potencial extraordinario en un proyecto que otros califican como locura megalómana? La historia que estáis a punto de escuchar trata exactamente de eso. Es la narrativa extraordinaria de un hombre visionario que construyó algo aparentemente absurdo y excesivo, enfrentando años de burlas de toda su comunidad hasta que la realidad demostró que su obsesión era en realidad pura genialidad práctica. Esta es una historia real que ocurrió en las tierras áridas de Extremadura, España, donde la supervivencia requiere planificación a largo plazo y donde una mente previsora puede significar la diferencia entre el éxito duradero y el fracaso inevitable. Nuestro protagonista desafió todas las críticas sobre desperdicio de recursos, con una construcción tan monumental como necesaria, que cambiaría para siempre la forma en que su comunidad entendía la importancia de construir bases sólidas para el futuro. Antes de sumergirnos en esta increíble historia de visión y vindication, no olvidéis darle like a este vídeo si queréis más contenido como este. Suscribíos al canal y activad la campanita de notificaciones para no perderos ninguna de nuestras fascinantes historias. Y por favor, decidme en los comentarios desde qué país y ciudad nos estáis viendo. Me encanta conocer a nuestra maravillosa audiencia global. Sin más demora, acompañadme en este viaje extraordinario donde descubriremos cómo lo que parecía una construcción ridículamente exagerada se convirtió en la decisión más inteligente jamás tomada. Párrafo 1. Aurelio Mendoza. Herrera había vivido toda su vida en el pueblo de Villanueva de la Serena, en la árida región de Extremadura, donde las sequías podían durar años enteros y donde cada familia dependía de técnicas de conservación de agua que habían sido perfeccionadas durante generaciones de vida en uno de los entornos más desafiantes e impredecibles de España en términos de disponibilidad hídrica. A sus 58 años, Aurelio era conocido en toda la comarca como el soñador de las piedras, un apodo que había ganado no por fantasías irreales, sino por su obsesión aparentemente irracional con la construcción de estructuras de piedra masivas que otros consideraban completamente desproporcionadas para las necesidades prácticas de una propiedad rural modesta. Su finca de 12 hectáreas, heredada de su abuelo, incluía terrenos de secano donde cultivaba olivos y almendros que dependían completamente de precipitaciones naturales que habían demostrado ser cada vez más escasas e impredecibles durante las últimas 2 décadas. Cuando el cambio climático había intensificado los ciclos de sequía que tradicionalmente habían caracterizado la región, pero que ahora se extendían durante periodos que amenazaban la viabilidad económica de la agricultura de temporal que constituía la base de la economía local. Era septiembre de 2018, cuando Aurelio comenzó a desarrollar una visión que transformaría su comprensión de la gestión del agua en ambientes áridos y que desafiaría todas las convenciones sobre construcción rural práctica y económicamente sensible. Durante una inspección rutinaria de su propiedad, después de una de las sequías más severas registradas en la región, había observado cómo las pocas lluvias que caían se perdían inmediatamente debido a la pendiente del terreno y la incapacidad del suelo compactado para absorber y retener agua suficiente para sostener la vegetación durante los largos periodos secos que seguían a las precipitaciones esporádicas. Aurelio había comenzado a visualizar un sistema masivo de captación y almacenamiento de agua que requeriría la construcción de una base de piedra monumental que muchos considerarían completamente excesiva para el tamaño de su propiedad, pero que él calculaba sería esencial para crear la infraestructura necesaria para sobrevivir y prosperar durante las sequías prolongadas que se estaban volviendo la norma más que la excepción en su región tradicionalmente seca, pero que ahora enfrentaba desafíos hídricos sin precedentes. La inspiración específica para su proyecto ambicioso surgió de su estudio de técnicas de conservación de agua, utilizadas por civilizaciones antiguas en regiones áridas, particularmente los sistemas de cisternas romanas que había observado en sitios arqueológicos cercanos, donde estructuras de piedra construidas hace más de 2000 años todavía funcionaban efectivamente para capturar y almacenar agua de lluvia durante periodos secos. Aurelio había comenzado a imaginar una versión modernizada de estos principios antiguos, pero aplicados a escala que proporcionaría seguridad hídrica completa para su propiedad durante sequías que podrían extenderse durante múltiples años consecutivos. Su concepto incluía no solo almacenamiento masivo de agua, sino también sistemas de distribución que permitirían riego eficiente durante toda su finca, transformándola de operación agrícola vulnerable a las precipitaciones en empresa completamente autosuficiente que podría mantener productividad incluso durante las condiciones climáticas más adversas que el cambio climático pudiera producir en su región durante las décadas venideras. Cuando Aurelio compartió esta visión grandiosa con su esposa Esperanza y sus vecinos más cercanos, se encontró con reacciones que variaban desde preocupación benevolente sobre proyectos megalomaníacos, hasta burlas abiertas sobre lo que percibían como la obsesión más costosa y desproporcionada que había desarrollado durante años de experimentos con mejoramiento de la propiedad, que generalmente habían sido modestos y sensatos en comparación con la escala monumental de construcción que ahora estaba proponiendo. Esperanza expresó temores específicos sobre el costo astronómico que un proyecto de tal magnitud representaría para su presupuesto familiar, especialmente considerando que la inversión sería tan grande que podría comprometer su estabilidad económica durante años sin garantías de que los beneficios justificarían los sacrificios financieros que sería necesario hacer para financiar una construcción que parecía más apropiada para un desarrollo comercial que para una finca familiar modesta. Los vecinos del pueblo comenzaron a referirse jocosamente al proyecto propuesto como la fortaleza de Aurelio o la pirámide extremeña, comentarios que reflejaban tanto su incomprensión de la lógica técnica detrás del concepto como su escepticismo sobre si alguien en su posición económica debería emprender algo tan ambicioso y potencialmente ruinoso financieramente. Sin embargo, Aurelio, armado con décadas de experiencia en agricultura de secano y una comprensión profunda de los desafíos hídricos que enfrentaría su región en las décadas venideras, decidió proceder con su proyecto, convencido de que la combinación de técnicas de construcción sólidas, planificación a largo plazo y visión estratégica produciría infraestructura que no solo justificaría su inversión, sino que se convertiría en el activo más valioso que podría dejar a las generaciones futuras de su familia. Párrafo 2. La fase de planificación e ingeniería se extendió durante 8 meses intensivos, desde octubre de 2018 hasta mayo de 2019, durante los cuales Aurelio transformó su estudio personal en un centro de diseño hidráulico, donde desarrolló planos detallados, calculó especificaciones estructurales y diseñó sistemas integrados de captación, almacenamiento y distribución de agua que aprovecharían cada gota de precipitación que cayera en su propiedad, mientras proporcionando capacidad de reserva suficiente para mantener operaciones agrícolas durante sequías que podrían extenderse hasta 5 años consecutivos sin precipitaciones significativas. Aurelio había determinado que su sistema requeriría una base de piedra que mediría aproximadamente 80 metros de largo por 40 metros de ancho con profundidad variable, que alcanzaría hasta 6 metros en ciertas secciones, dimensiones que proporcionarían cimientos para múltiples cisternas interconectadas con capacidad total de almacenamiento de aproximadamente 2,5 millones de litros, cantidad que sus cálculos indicaban sería suficiente para mantener irrigación completa de sus 12 hectáreas durante periodos de sequía extrema que excederían cualquier evento climático registrado históricamente en la región. El diseño técnico que Aurelio desarrolló era revolucionario en su integración de principios de ingeniería hidráulica antigua con tecnologías modernas de construcción y gestión del agua, Su base de piedra no sería simplemente una plataforma de soporte, sino una estructura compleja que incorporaría sistemas de drenaje, filtración y distribución que maximizarían la eficiencia de captura de agua, mientras minimizando pérdidas por evaporación y infiltración que podrían reducir significativamente la efectividad del sistema durante periodos de almacenamiento prolongado. La construcción utilizaría técnicas de mampostería tradicional, extremeña, pero aplicadas con precisión de ingeniería que aseguraría integridad estructural durante décadas de uso intensivo bajo condiciones climáticas que incluían no solo sequías extremas, sino también tormentas ocasionales que podrían generar flujos de agua que excederían la capacidad de sistemas de drenaje inadecuadamente diseñados. Aurelio había estudiado extensivamente casos históricos de falla de infraestructura hidráulica, para incorporar características de seguridad que prevendrían problemas que habían arruinado proyectos similares en otras regiones donde ambición constructiva había superado competencia técnica en diseño e implementación. La adquisición de materiales para un proyecto de tal magnitud presentaba desafíos logísticos sin precedentes en la experiencia previa de Aurelio con mejoramiento de propiedad. Su construcción requeriría aproximadamente 800 toneladas de piedra natural extraída de canteras locales, 200 toneladas de mortero especializado resistente al agua y cientos de metros de tubería y accesorios para sistemas de plomería que conectarían las cisternas con puntos de distribución estratégicamente ubicados por toda la propiedad para riego eficiente de cultivos. El costo total de materiales ascendía a aproximadamente 35.000 euros, una inversión que representaba prácticamente todos los ahorros de la familia Mendoza acumulados durante décadas de trabajo agrícola, plus préstamos adicionales, que requerirían años de pagos que comprometerían significativamente su flexibilidad económica durante el periodo de construcción y varios años posteriores, hasta que el sistema comenzara a producir beneficios económicos que justificarían la inversión masiva. Esperanza había expresado reluctancia comprensible sobre comprometer recursos tan significativos en un proyecto experimental, pero los cálculos detallados de Aurelio, que demostraban potencial para aumento de productividad agrícola de 300-400% durante años secos, combined con seguridad hídrica que proporcionaría independencia completa de precipitaciones naturales, eventualmente la convencieron de que el proyecto representaba investment in future prosperity más que gambling irresponsible con family security. Durante este periodo de preparación intensiva, las reacciones del vecindario escalaron desde curiosidad casual hacia preocupación seria, cuando los residentes del pueblo comenzaron a darse cuenta de la escala masiva del proyecto que Aurelio estaba planificando, especialmente después de que camiones comenzaran a entregar montañas de piedra y materiales de construcción que obviamente estaba organizando para algún tipo de construcción que superaría en tamaño y costo cualquier proyecto de mejoramiento doméstico que hubiera sido emprendido anteriormente en la región por propietarios individuales. El alcalde municipal, Francisco Delgado, había visitado la propiedad para expresar preocupaciones about potential environmental impact y para verificar que el proyecto cumpliera con regulaciones locales relacionadas con construcción y uso del agua que podrían afectar disponibilidad hídrica para otros usuarios en la zona. Aurelio, le dijo Francisco, después de inspeccionar los planos y las cantidades de materiales que estaban siendo acumuladas, entiendo que quieres mejorar tu sistema de riego, pero lo que estás planeando aquí es como construir un resort o una instalación industrial. ¿Estás seguro de que esto es practical para una finca familiar? Sin embargo, Aurelio había consultado extensively con ingenieros hidráulicos y había confirmado que su proyecto cumplía con todas las regulaciones while providing environmental benefits through improved water conservation, que actually would reduce stress sobre regional water resources durante drought periods, cuando conventional irrigation systems would require más water desde sources externos que might not be available durante extreme climatic events. Párrafo 3. La construcción de la base de piedra comenzó durante la primera semana de junio de 2019, cuando las condiciones climáticas proporcionaban tiempo seco ideal para excavación y construcción de cimientos que requeriría meses de trabajo sostenido bajo el sol intenso de Extremadura, que frecuentemente alcanzaba temperaturas de 40+ grados centígrados, pero que también aseguraba que concreto y mortero curarían properly, sin interference desde unexpected precipitation que podría delay progress o compromise structural integrity de foundations que tenían que support massive weight de millions de liters de water, plus structural loads de cistern walls y distribution systems que would be built on top de elaborate stone base que Aurelio había designed tan carefully. El proceso inicial de excavation requirió removal de approximately 2.0 cubic meters de soil using machinery rented desde León Capital. Work que demandaba precision considerable para asegurar que final grades y slopes would direct water flow efficiently, while providing stable foundations para each section de complex system que was being constructed según specifications que Aurelio había calculated durante months de detailed planning. La instalación de stone foundations presentaba challenges técnicos que required combining traditional masonry skills que Aurelio había learned desde local craftsmen con modern engineering principles que assured structural integrity que could withstand stresses generated por massive water storage y potential ground movement que might occur durante extreme weather events o natural settling que characterize soil conditions en su region. Each stone tenía que be selected individually para size, shape, y density que would optimize load distribution while providing optimal fit con adjacent stones que created seamless surface que would support weight uniformly. Aurelio trabajaba primarily con two experienced stonemasons, Miguel Sánchez y Juan Carlos López, que había recruited desde neighboring towns, porque local workers lacked experience con projects de such scale y complexity, que required specialized knowledge de hydraulic construction techniques que were not commonly used in agricultural applications but que were essential para success the system que would handle volumes de water much larger que anything previously attempted in domestic farming operations throughout la region. Durante las primeras 8 weeks de construction, las reactions del vecindario intensified significantly. Cuando residents del pueblo began to recognize que lo que Aurelio estaba building was genuinely massive in scale y apparently unstoppable in scope, especialmente después de que excavation revealed exact dimensions de foundations que obviously intended para structure que would dwarf any residential o agricultural building en la entire comarca. La enormity de excavation site, combined con constant activity de heavy machinery y delivery trucks que brought materials daily, created disruption que affected entire community y generated concerns about traffic, noise, y potential environmental impact que some residents felt was inconsiderate de community harmony que traditionally characterized relations entre neighbors en su pequeño pueblo. Carmen Ruiz, la neighbor más cercana a Aurelio's property, had begun expressing complaints about dusty noise que was affecting her family's comfort, y several other residents had petitioned municipal authorities para investigation de whether project was actually legally appropriate para residential agricultural area que had never experienced construction activity de such magnitude. Aurelio ha perdido completamente la razón con esta obsesión, declared Carmen, durante a meeting en el bar local que was attended por more que 20 concerned residents que wanted to discuss potential actions para addressing situation que many viewed como disruption intolerable de community peace y environmental balance, que threatened to affect quality de vida para everyone en la area. Miguel Santos, el local pharmacist que had known Aurelio durante decades, was particularly vocal in expressing skepticism about project que seemed to represent megalomania más que practical improvement. I understand que Aurelio wants to improve his farming, pero lo que está doing aquí is completely out de proportion para anyone's reasonable needs, y el cost must be bankrupting his family para something que probably won't work anyway. Miguel declared, expressing sentiments que were shared for many de la community que viewed Aurelio's project como evidence de poor judgment que was wasting resources que could be used much more sensibly para practical improvements que would provide reasonable benefits without creating massive disruption para entire neighborhood. Párrafo 4. La finalización de la base de piedra coincidió con el inicio de la temporada seca más severa registrada en Extremadura durante la década anterior, cuando las precipitaciones prácticamente cesaron desde agosto hasta diciembre y las temperaturas se mantuvieron consistentemente por encima de 35 grados centígrados, durante periodos que pusieron a prueba todos los sistemas de irrigación en la región bajo condiciones de estrés hídrico que revelaron dramáticamente las limitaciones de métodos convencionales de gestión del agua que dependían de reservas limitadas y fuentes externas que se agotaron rápidamente cuando la demanda excedió la disponibilidad durante la crisis de sequía que afectó no solo cultivos individuales, sino toda la economía regional basada en agricultura de secano. Durante este período de testing extremo, Aurelio había completado la instalación de sus cisternas masivas y había comenzado las primeras operaciones de su sistema revolucionario, proporcionando una demostración en tiempo real de la efectividad de su infraestructura, bajo exactamente las condiciones para las cuales había sido diseñada durante meses de planificación meticulosa que ahora enfrentaba validation definitiva, bajo circunstancias que no podrían haber sido más apropiadas para probar every aspect de su design ambicioso. Los resultados iniciales del sistema superaron incluso las expectativas optimistas que Aurelio había desarrollado durante sus cálculos teóricos de performance bajo condiciones adversas. Mientras otros agricultores en la región enfrentaban pérdidas de cultivos de 60-80% debido a sequía que había agotado pozos locales y había forzado rationing severo del water municipal, Shaku was normally available para irrigation durante emergencies. Aurelio's crops maintained full productivity mediante utilization de water stored in sus massive cisterns que habían been filled durante brief spring. Rinsky most other farmers had been unable to capture I store effectively. Sus 12 hectares de olivos y almendros continued to receive optimal irrigation throughout la entire dry season, mientras neighboring properties experienced crop failure, que represented economic disaster para families que depended on agricultural income para survival. La difference in productivity between Aurelio's property y surrounding farms was so dramatic que it was visible desde significant distances, creating green oases que contrasted starkly con brown, drought-stressed landscape que characterized most de la region durante this period de extreme water scarcity. More impressive aún was la efficiency con que el system operated durante peak demand periods, cuando irrigation requirements were highest debido a extreme temperatures que increased evaporation rates y plant water consumption, a levels que would have overwhelmed conventional irrigation systems que lacked adequate storage capacity para sustained operation durante extended dry periods. Aurelio's distribution network, built on his massive stone foundation, provided water pressure wide flow rates, que enabled efficient irrigation the entire property using automated systems, que minimized labor requirements while maximizing water utilization efficiency at levels que exceeded performance to commercial agricultural operations que utilized much more expensive technology but que lacked fundamental infrastructure para reliable water storage que was proving a be critical factor in determining agricultural success durante increasingly unpredictable climatic conditions que were affecting entire Mediterranean region debido a global climate change, que was intensifying traditional weather patterns. La first public demonstration de system effectiveness occurred durante una visit organized por Francisco Delgado, el municipal mayor que had been initially skeptical about project pero que now recognized que Aurelio had achieved something que could have significant implications para economic resilience the entire community, facing increasing challenges relacionadas a water availability y agricultural sustainability. Durante this demonstration, which included representatives desde the Agricultural Ministry, university researchers, y farmers desde neighboring communities que were struggling con drought impacts, visitors were able to observe directly the stark contrast entre conditions en Aurelio's property y surrounding areas que were experiencing crop failure, soil degradation, y economic distress que threatened viability de traditional farming practices. Ka had supported regional economy para generations, but ka were proving inadequate para addressing new realities. De climate change ka required innovation e long-term planning ke scales ka. Most individual farmers had never considered necessary or practical for implementation and small-scale agricultural operations. Párrafo 5. Durante las siguientes 12 semanas, mientras la sequía continuó intensificándose hasta alcanzar niveles que superaron todos los registros históricos de la región, el sistema de Aurelio demostró no solo resistencia excepcional, sino capacidad para mantener productividad agrícola que permitió a su familia no solo sobrevivir, sino prosperar durante condiciones que habían forzado a muchos agricultores vecinos a abandonar sus cultivos y buscar empleos alternativos en ciudades porque sus propiedades se habían vuelto completamente inviables económicamente sin acceso a water suficiente para mantener even basic survival de sus crops durante una crisis climática que was testing limits the human adaptability in regions que had become increasingly vulnerable to extreme weather events que were exceeding all previous experience I preparedness de communities que had developed agricultural practices durante centuries de relative climatic stability que no longer existed. Debido a accelerating climate change, el aspecto más remarkable del performance del system was su ability to maintain not just basic irrigation, pero optimal growing conditions my enabled Aurelio's crops to achieve yields que actually exceeded normal production levels. Debido a precision control de water delivery que eliminated both drought stress y overwatering que commonly reduced productivity, cuando farmers relied on conventional irrigation methods que lacked sophisticated monitoring and distribution capabilities que Aurelio had incorporated in su design. Sus olive trees produced 40% more fruit que normal harvest years, mientras almond production increased por approximately 60%. Compared to historical averages, economic benefits que more ka justified huge initial investment in infrastructure, ka had initially appeared excessive, pero ka now demonstrated its value through performance. Ka could not have been achieved mediante any other approach available equi. Individual farmers ka lacked resources para large-scale infrastructure development ka required vision and commitment ka extended far beyond typical agricultural planning horizons. Recognition the importance de Aurelio's innovation began to spread throughout la región cuando agricultural extension agents, government officials, academic researchers began documenting systematically la performance differential between his property in surrounding farms que were experiencing devastating losses que threatened or destroy economic base de multiple communities que depended on agriculture para survival. Dr. Elena Vasquez, agricultural engineer desde Universidad de Extremadura, conducted detailed studies que confirmed que Aurelio's system was achieving water use efficiency que exceeded commercial agricultural operations, que utilized much more sophisticated technology, pero que lacked fundamental infrastructure para reliable water storage que was proving critical para maintaining productivity durante increasingly extreme climatic conditions que required revolutionary approaches. Agricultural water management ka could provide security durante multi-year drought cycles que were becoming more frequent y severe due to global climate patterns que were affecting agricultural regions throughout Mediterranean basin. The social implications de Aurelio's success were equally significant cuando community members que had initially ridiculed his excessive investment began to recognize que his foresight y willingness to commit massive resources. A long-term infrastructure development had enabled him to achieve agricultural independence. Q was providing economic security durante crisis. K was threatening survival de traditional farming communities throughout entire region. Miguel Santos, el pharmacist que had been among most vocal critics de project, was among first to acknowledge publicly que he had completely underestimated both scope de problem que Aurelio was addressing, a sophistication de solution que he had developed to address challenges que were proving beyond capacity the conventional agricultural practices a handle effectively.
I have to admit que Aurelio understood something que rest de us didn't see. Miguel declared durante community meeting que was organized to discuss regional response a ongoing drought crisis. While we were laughing at him para building something que seemed ridiculously large, he was preparing para exactly situation que we're all facing now. Y his crazy project is providing security que none de us have porque we didn't think ahead like he did. Párrafo 6. La llegada del invierno de 2019-2020 trajo consigo las primeras lluvias significativas en más de 6 meses, proporcionando la primera oportunidad real para probar la capacidad de captación del sistema de Aurelio bajo condiciones de precipitación intensa que permitirían evaluar si sus cálculos de ingeniería habían sido precisos en predecir how effectively su massive infrastructure podría capture y store rainwater que was essential para long-term sustainability de his agricultural operations y para validating cost-effectiveness de investment que had represented such significant commitment de family resources durante period, cuando return on investment was uncertain and dependent a la performance que could only be verified through actual experience durante complete climatic cycle que would test all aspects de system design under real-world conditions que might reveal problems que were not anticipated. Durante theoretical planning phase the project, los resultados de la primera temporada lluviosa demostraron que las proyecciones de Aurelio habían been conservative rather que optimistic en sus estimates de system performance. Durante 3 weeks de precipitation que totaled approximately 180 millimeters, sus cisternas captured y stored approximately 2 million liters de water, quantity que exceeded even his most optimistic projections y que represented sufficient reserves to maintain full irrigation de his entire property para more que 2 complete growing seasons, even if no additional precipitation occurred durante that period. La efficiency de capture was remarkably high, with approximately 85% de total rainfall que fell in his property being successfully collected, filtered, and stored, performance que far exceeded typical rainwater harvesting systems, que usually achieved capture rates the only 40-60% debido a limitations in collection surface area, distribution networks, storage capacity que were not designed to handle volumes que Aurelio's system could accommodate mediante infrastructure que had been scaled appropriately to maximize utilization de every available drop de precious water durante increasingly rare precipitation events. More impressive was resilience de stone foundation. During periods de intense rainfall que tested structural integrity de entire system under hydraulic loads, que have reached maximum design specifications, he occasionally exceeded them cuando storm intensity surpassed meteorological predictions que had been used durante engineering phase de project planning. Las massive stone base que had initially appeared excessive proved essential para providing stable platform que could support massive weight de stored water without settling, shifting, or developing structural problems que could have compromised system integrity and potentially caused catastrophic failure que would have destroyed years de work year investment while creating flooding que could have damaged property or endangered safety. The family members que lived in area que would be affected por uncontrolled water release in cisternas que contained volumes sufficient to cause significant damage if containment was breached durante severe weather events que could exceed design parameters de inadequately engineered infrastructure. Durante this testing period under maximum hydraulic loads, Aurelio documented meticulously la performance de every component de his system, creating detailed records que would prove invaluable para future optimization y que demonstrated scientifically la validity de design principles que he had applied durante planning phase de project que had been dismissed por critics como unnecessarily complex y expensive para agricultural application que seemed to exceed rational requirements para individual farming operation. His documentation revealed que system was operating slightly above design efficiency and most parameters, suggesting que his conservative engineering approach had created infrastructure que possessed safety margins que ensured reliable performance, even bajo conditions que exceeded normal operational parameters ka, had been used para design calculations ka formed basis para entire project ka, was now proving its value through performance key, validated every major decision Q had been made durante development process. K had required unprecedented commitment de resources para implementation division key. Few people had been able to appreciate until its benefits became undeniably obvious durante crisis conditions que demonstrated its necessity. Párrafo 7. El año 2020 proporcionó la prueba definitiva del sistema de Aurelio cuando Extremadura experimentó una sequía que se extendió desde marzo hasta noviembre sin precipitaciones significativas, seguida inmediatamente por una temporada de lluvias torrenciales que pusieron a prueba tanto la capacidad de reserva como la resistencia estructural de su infraestructura bajo condiciones climáticas extremas que representaban exactamente los escenarios más desafiantes para los cuales había diseñado su sistema durante años de planificación que ahora enfrentaba validation bajo circunstancias que combinaban extended periods de maximum demand con subsequent periods de extreme hydraulic stress, que tested every aspect de engineering y construction quality ka. Determined success or failure de projects que involved massive infrastructure development for agricultural applications, que required long-term reliability under unpredictable climatic conditions, que were becoming increasingly severe due to climate change que was affecting agricultural regions throughout Europe. Durante the 8-month drought period, Aurelio's system maintained full agricultural productivity, whilst neighboring farms experienced complete crop failure, que forced many families to abandon agriculture, relocate to urban areas que offered employment opportunities, que were not dependent on climatic conditions, que had become unreliable for traditional farming practices, que lacked adequate infrastructure para maintaining operations durante extended periods without precipitation, que exceeded historical patterns is que required water storage capabilities, que far exceeded what most individual farmers had considered necessary or economically justifiable para implementation and small-scale agricultural operations que traditionally had depended on seasonal precipitation patterns que were no longer reliable debido a global climate change que was disrupting traditional agricultural practices throughout Mediterranean regions. Ka were experiencing unprecedented challenges related to water availability, agricultural sustainability. Las economic benefits the system durante this period the extreme testing were extraordinary, with Aurelio's agricultural income actually increasing durante a year. Que devastated regional agricultural economy debido a his ability to maintain full production, whilst market prices for agricultural products increased dramatically due to severe supply shortages que resulted from widespread crop failures que affected most producers in region que lacked adequate water storage infrastructure. His olive almond harvests achieved record productivity levels. Debido a optimal irrigation, Ka was maintained throughout growing season, whilst processing facilities que normally handled production from dozens de farms were competing para purchase his crops que represented significant portion de total regional production que survived drought conditions que eliminated competition from conventional farmers que were unable to maintain adequate irrigation para crop survival durante unprecedented climatic stress que exceeded adaptive capacity de traditional agricultural practices que had not been designed to handle extreme weather events que were becoming more frequent and severe due to accelerating climate change. Recognition the revolutionary nature, the Aurelio's approach. Agricultural water management reached national level, cuando Ministry de Agriculture included his system and official study, the innovative water conservation techniques que could serve como model para adaptation strategies que would enable Spanish agriculture to maintain productivity durante increasingly challenging climatic conditions que threatened food security and regions que traditionally had been major agricultural producers, but who were becoming vulnerable to crop failures, que could affect national food supply, economic stability, de rural communities, que depended on agricultural income para survival. Dr. Carmen Lopez, director del National Institute para Agricultural Water Management, declared durante official visit a Aurelio's property que what Señor Mendoza has achieved represents paradigm shift and thinking about agricultural infrastructure que could transform how we approach farming in water-scarce environments que require long-term planning, a substantial infrastructure investment que most individual farmers have not considered practical or necessary, but que his example demonstrates can provide economic returns, que justify investment whilst ensuring agricultural sustainability, que will be essential para adapting a climate change que is affecting agricultural production throughout Mediterranean region. Y párrafo 8. En febrero de 2021, cuando las autoridades regionales organizaron una conferencia sobre adaptación agrícola al cambio climático en Mérida, Aurelio fue invitado como orador principal para presentar su sistema ante una audiencia que incluía farmers, engineers, government officials y international development experts que estaban studying innovative approaches a agricultural water management que could be adapted para implementation in water-stressed regions throughout Europe's Mediterranean basin que were facing increasing challenges related to climate change que was affecting agricultural productivity and economic sustainability de rural communities que depended on farming para survival durante increasingly unpredictable climatic conditions que required revolutionary approaches or resource management que could provide security durante extreme weather events que were exceeding adaptive capacity de traditional agricultural practices que had not been designed para handle conditions que were becoming more frequent and severe due a global climate change que was transforming agricultural regions throughout world. Durante su presentación, que was attended por more que 300 participants desde throughout Spain y several other European countries, Aurelio emphasized que his success had resulted not desde advanced technology or expensive equipment, pero desde willingness to commit substantial resources a infrastructure development que provided fundamental capacity para water storage y management que was essential para agricultural sustainability durante climatic extremes que required long-term planning y vision que extended far beyond typical agricultural planning horizons, que usually focused on annual or seasonal considerations, rather que multi-year infrastructure investments que could provide resilience durante extended periods de adverse climatic conditions que were becoming more common due a climate change que was affecting agricultural regions throughout Mediterranean basin que were experiencing unprecedented challenges related to water availability, crop productivity, economic viability, the traditional farming practices, que lacked adequate infrastructure para reliable water management during extreme weather events. His presentation was received con enthusiasm por audience que recognized que practical solutions. Climate change challenges frequently required substantial initial investments, que might appear excessive cuando evaluated using conventional cost-benefit analysis, pero que could provide essential infrastructure que enabled not just survival pero prosperity durante climatic extremes que were testing limits. The traditional agricultural practices que had been developed durante periods de relative climatic stability que no longer existed due to accelerating climate change que was requiring revolutionary approaches agricultural planning que incorporated scenarios que exceeded historical experience y que required infrastructure development que could handle conditions que were beyond adaptive capacity de conventional farming practices que had not been designed para extreme weather events que were becoming more frequent, severe, unpredictable due to global climate patterns que were affecting agricultural regions throughout worldwide, que required innovative solutions que could provide security durante unprecedented climatic challenges. International recognition de Aurelio's innovations culminated cuando European Union included his techniques in official guidelines para agricultural adaptation, a climate change que were distributed to farming communities throughout Europe actually were facing similar challenges related to increasing water scarcity, extreme weather events, when economic pressures could threaten viability of the traditional Agricultural practices के required modernization या infrastructure development का could enable continued productivity during climatic conditions के exceeded historical parameters का required planning horizons या resource commitments का most individual farmers had not considered necessary or practical para implementation, and agricultural operations ka traditionally had operated using annual planning. Cycles ka were adequate durante periods de climatic stability, pero ka were proving inadequate para addressing challenges associated con climate change, ke was requiring fundamental changes and approaches. A agricultural resource management ka could ensure long-term sustainability during increasingly unpredictable way extreme climatic conditions were affecting agricultural productivity throughout. Regions ko depended on farming, para economic survival food security ka was becoming increasingly vulnerable a climatic disruption ka required innovative solutions ka could provide resilience during unprecedented challenges. Ka were testing adaptive capacity de traditional agricultural systems throughout world. Párrafo 9. Durante summer de 2021, cuando another severe drought affected vast areas de Spain y Portugal, Aurelio's property served as demonstration site para continuous stream de visitors, que included farmers, agricultural researchers, government officials, and international development experts who wanted to study firsthand the performance the infrastructure had enabled sustained agricultural productivity during climatic conditions were causing widespread crop failures and economic hardship throughout region. Was experiencing one of the most severe droughts in recorded history. Was testing resilience the agricultural communities and threatening economic stability the rural areas depended on farming para survival during increasingly challenging climatic conditions required. Innovative approaches a resource management key could provide security during extreme weather events were exceeding adaptive capacity the traditional agricultural practices had been developed during periods the relative climatic stability no longer existed due to climate change was transforming agricultural regions throughout Mediterranean basin and beyond. La success de Aurelio's system during this period, the extreme testing had inspired establishment the regional program provided technical assistance and partial financing para farmers wanted to implement similar water storage systems adapted to their specific conditions and resources, recognizing widespread adoption the infrastructure could provide agricultural resilience during extreme weather events would benefit not only individual farmers pero entire regional economy depended on agricultural productivity para economic stability and employment supported rural communities were facing increasing challenges related a climate change was affecting agricultural viability throughout areas traditionally had been major agricultural producers. Luis Garcia, director of the Regional Agricultural Development Authority, declared that Aurelio's example has demonstrated that individual farmers can develop infrastructure that provides security during climatic extremes that are becoming more frequent. Your responsibility as a support wider implementation the approaches can strengthen agricultural resilience throughout region needs innovative solutions para adapting a climate change is affecting agricultural productivity and threatening economic survival de rural communities depend on farming para their livelihood. Implementation de regional program based in Aurelio's principles resulted in construction de more than 40 similar water storage systems throughout Extremadura during following 2 years, creating network the climate resilient agricultural operations that could maintain productivity during extreme weather events. It provided economic stability para rural communities that had been threatened by increasing climatic unpredictability that was affecting traditional farming practices, that lacked adequate infrastructure para reliable water management during drought periods, that could extend para multiple consecutive years that required water storage capabilities that far exceeded what most farmers had considered necessary or practical para individual agricultural operations that traditionally had. Depended on seasonal precipitation patterns that were no longer reliable due a climate change was disrupting agricultural practices throughout Mediterranean regions. Were experiencing unprecedented challenges related to water availability why agricultural sustainability required revolutionary approaches. A resource management could ensure long-term viability during extreme climatic conditions. Recognition the regional impact the Aurelio's innovations reached international level when the United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization featured his techniques and global report and climate adaptation strategies could be applied in water-stressed agricultural regions. Throughout world were facing challenges similar. Those had motivated development his revolutionary approach agricultural infrastructure provided resilience during extreme weather events. Were becoming more frequent is severe due a global climate change. Was affecting agricultural productivity and food security and regions. Traditionally had been major food producers but were becoming vulnerable. Crop failures could affect global food supply while economic stability. The rural communities depended on agricultural income para survival during increasingly unpredictable climatic conditions required innovative solutions. Could provide security during unprecedented challenges. Were testing adaptive capacity the traditional agricultural systems throughout regions. Were experiencing impacts the climate change. Required fundamental changes and approaches agricultural planning is. Resource management could ensure continued productivity during extreme weather events exceeded historical experience y planning parameters. Párrafo 10. En septiembre de 2023, exactamente 5 años después de que Aurelio comenzara la construcción de su base de piedra ridículamente exagerada, su propiedad había evolucionado hacia un modelo internationally recognized de agricultural resilience que había inspired similar projects en more than 200 locations throughout Europe, North Africa, by other Mediterranean climates were facing comparable challenges related to climate change, water scarcity, and agricultural sustainability required innovative approaches infrastructure development could provide long-term security during increasingly extreme climatic conditions. Were testing adaptive capacity the traditional farming practices had been developed during periods the relative climatic stability no longer existed due to accelerating global climate change was transforming. Agricultural regions throughout world required revolutionary solutions could ensure agricultural productivity, high economic viability during unprecedented weather events were becoming more frequent, severe, and unpredictable due to global climate patterns were affecting food security and agricultural sustainability throughout regions. Depended on farming para survival and economic stability. Durante celebration del 5th anniversary, was attended por representatives desde FAO, European Union agricultural agencies, and farming communities desde throughout Mediterranean basin had implemented variations de Aurelio's techniques, reflection and extraordinary journey had begun con his obsession con building massive stone infrastructure others had ridiculed como excessive y impractical, but had evolved a global model para agricultural adaptation was providing resilience and prosperity para farming communities were facing climatic challenges exceeded historical experience required infrastructure development could handle extreme weather conditions. Traditional agricultural practices were unable to manage effectively during periods of severe drought or intense precipitation could overwhelm conventional water management systems, lacked adequate storage capacity. Distribution networks were essential para maintaining agricultural productivity during climatic extremes were becoming more common due to climate change was affecting agricultural regions throughout world. Cumulative economic impact de Aurelio's innovations had been documented and multiple studies confirmed not only substantial returns and investment para individual farmers had implemented his techniques, pero también significant benefits para entire regions had developed networks de climate-resilient agricultural operations. Kya could maintain productivity durante extreme weather events. Kya were threatening food security e economic stability de rural communities que depended on farming para survival durante increasingly challenging climatic conditions que required long-term planning yai infrastructure. Development ka could provide security durante unprecedented weather events ka were testing limits de traditional agricultural practices. Economic analysis conducted por Universidad de Extremadura confirmed que farmers ka had implemented similar systems, had achieved average productivity increases, the Chinese 60% durante normal years, he had maintained 80-90% the normal productivity. Durante severe drought years, he caused complete crop failures. Para farmers ka relied on conventional water management techniques, were inadequate para handling extreme climatic conditions ka required infrastructure. Could store sufficient water para multi-year drought cycles were becoming more frequent due to climate change. Environmental impact assessment conducted por international research collaboration confirmed कि widespread adoption of water storage infrastructure based on Aurelio's principles had resulted in significant improvements and regional water security, reduced pressure and municipal water supplies durante drought periods. Enhanced agricultural sustainability was contributing a food security with economic stability benefited entire regions had faced increasing vulnerability a climate change who was affecting agricultural productivity threatening economic survival the rural communities depended on farming para their livelihood durante increasingly unpredictable climatic conditions who required innovative solutions who could provide resilience durante extreme weather events exceeded adaptive capacity de traditional agricultural practices yet had not been designed to handle conditions who were becoming more severe and frequent due to global climate change was transforming agricultural regions throughout world PDGU required revolutionary approaches to resource management could ensure long-term sustainability and prosperity para farming communities. She faced unprecedented challenges related to climate adaptation required vision, commitment, a substantial infrastructure investment could provide security durante climatic extremes were testing limits, the human adaptability and agricultural regions throughout world were experiencing impacts the accelerating climate change required fundamental changes and approaches agricultural planning and development could ensure continued productivity या economic viability durante increasingly challenging climatic conditions were affecting agricultural sustainability throughout regions depended on farming para food security and economic survival de rural communities needed innovative solutions for adapting a changing climate was affecting agricultural productivity throughout world.